We have more important things to be getting on with, though, and obviously the most important thing of all is our Indie of the Week. And this
Ooh.
week, it's the infamous JT.
I
Mm.
do love that man.
Jamie Tranter, for people who are not aware of his work, he's been floating around in our little cubbyhole of an industry for some time now, worked with various companies, Warlord, Footsore, Meg as well, I think. Done some fantastic painting over the years. A thoroughly nice guy. And a few years ago, he ran a Kickstarter for the Warsaw Uprising. And that is what we're going to be looking at. Because when I say it's little indie, it is so little. It's 63 days of littleness. Because it was just put together a set of 28mm figures that could be used for the Warsaw Uprising in any World War II game you fancy. Obviously, if you're a bolt action player, this is nailed on for that, because it gives you plenty in there. I will start with my favorite pieces, I think. So the range itself was sculpted by a couple of sculptors. So there was Dennis Zornowski from Savage Forged. He did all the figures, and then Jonathan from Vivictus, Linares, possibly is how they pronounce their name. He did the 3D work, the CAD work, so things like the Cubus at the back. All the weapons were 3D sculpted and then handed over. And there's also a little dispatch biker. So those are the two guys working through it. If I go into here, though, so this is pretty much the extent of it. It is compact and bijou Boston. But like I say, I'm starting with my favorite. So there were a couple of characters, for want of a better word. As you can see here, there's a photographer with cat, who was, and I'm not going to pronounce that name, it looks like the Polish version of Eugene. And I don't want to insult him. He was actually a Polish Olympian, decathlon, long jump, javelin, all these sort of things, drafted into the Polish army at the start of the war, was made an officer, captured by the Soviets. He escaped to Warsaw and started running classes in like an underground university, which means he wasn't part of the officer massacre when the Soviets just lined up all the Polish officers and went, yeah, we're going to kill you. So he was there in Warsaw when the rising took place in as part of the Home Guard in 44, and the cat is a little cat that he was pictured with. I don't know if it was his own cat or not. I wonder if they had the photos on the original Kickstarter. I might try and grab those to see if I can find them. He unfortunately died during the uprising. His sister collected all his photos and published them in a book. It is a very expensive book.
I can imagine.
But if you find it, or you can even possibly look for it online, it has, day-to-day shots of the Home Guard during the uprising. People firing out of windows, or people just catching a break between, engagements, or just, living their lives while this insanity was going on around them.
I imagine a lot of his work was inspiration for what was created for the range, I imagine, and sort of used as reference and all sorts of different things. So
no, I can't get the pictures up, which is a terrible shame. Anyway, so that's our photographer, he was a nice little bonus for the Kickstarter. The medic, on the other hand, is Donatu Motas, one of Jamie's friends, Peter, who does a lot of painting. You'll have seen his work on Warlord's site, doing some of the studio paint jobs and stuff. So things like the mouse. Remember they released the mouse? That was one of Peter's. This is his grandmother. So she was actually a medic in the Home Army during the Rising, and they sculpted based off photographs that Peter passed across. She was actually in a house when it was shelled by a tank, possibly a tiger, something very big anyway, and survived because there was a door in front of her that took the blast and then hit her and sort of, sandwiched her in it. So she ended up being captured and spend the rest of the war in a prisoner of war camp. So, but those two are, just because they are specific people, and the work they've done is great. So I just love having these actual little homages to actual people
really
who
cool.
fought in it.
Absolutely.
And I say that these are, particular people. In actual fact, because obviously he took a lot of photographs and there are photographs kicking around, some of the other models are based on photographs of the Rising, even in cases where they may not know who the person is, but they are, accurate to the people that you have there. So if I then go into some of the actual partisan packs, we'll do those first. We'll start with the rifles. So as you can see, the partisans are wearing a eclectic mix of stuff. Some are in commandeered German equipment, so there's a lot of people running around in SS Spocks and stuff that they stolen from the Germans, because Warsaw had become the sort of fortress city for the Germans. Others are just wearing civvies, obviously all with the Polish national flag as their armband for easy identification. But these are a stunning little group of fellows.
There's something you don't really ever see, is a 10-year-old child carrying weapons.
Plenty of them around.
See it all the time, yeah.
And well, this is the other thing, because obviously they're nailed on for the Polish uprising, but they also work very well for partisans in other areas. Or if push comes to shove, you could use them as Volkssturm, so the drafted Germans as well, where you're just handing kids and old men weapons and telling them to get out there and defend Berlin. Could be done for that, or you could use them for interwar stuff as well. These are all metal cast, with the exception of the kubus and the little bicycle, which is they're both resin, by the way. So that's our first rifleman pack. Our second, a little more civilian-esque.
That helmet is so big for that guy's head.
Oh, it's great, isn't it?
I know the fellow on the right has the right idea. He understood the assignment.
Let's get absolutely lashed.
And then screw up some Germans.
It's the best way to get through the fighting, I think.
Yep.
These are just gorgeous.
I really like the mix of kit they're wearing. Obviously not kit, but civilian outfits and stuff.
Well, there you go.
They're creating a good, diverse force of soldiers. Yeah.
Well, that's it for your partisan force, where you've got people who, literally went and stole a load of German kit from a warehouse, to the people who have just turned up with a helmet and an armband, and off they go. So a set of essentially 12 rifle. Well, I say 12 rifle. There's an LMG in there, but you could have a rifle team, or there's the same with SMGs.
A little bit of close-up action.
Yeah.
Molotov as well. Good stuff.
Well, wouldn't have it any other way. And again, some of the weapons are specific. So some were, Polish hand-built variants of things like Grace guns or Thompsons that they were
screwed together.
Yeah, that they were making on the ground. That, I think, is an early war Polish SMG. With the
is that like a fire brigade hat as well? That the one guy's
probably.
Yeah.
But then bear in mind the French Adrian helm was similar in style. So it could go either way. Let's put it like that. And again,
Really cool stuff.
more of same. And these are just
Nice
absolutely
dynamic
gorgeous.
stuff. Nice
Yeah.
dynamic poses as well. Which is good.
I know
Yeah.
these are gorgeous because I backed the Kickstarter, so I have a full army of this. Which is why every year I go, we should do some stuff in August for the Polish Uprising, and then every year something else occurs, and I never get a chance to do it. We should do this, Shay.
I'm up for it. Sorry about me.
So that's your infantry sections. So your platoons and the like. Then on top of that, we also have the more esoteric. I say more esoteric. That's somewhat esoteric. The British dropped some Piats in for them to use.
Yeah.
So there are Piat teams available. I don't know what numbers they were there, but they had them, and occasionally Piat would work. You know,
Hey
occasionally.
guys, you have 3.
Sometimes.
You have, if it doesn't work, try a bigger spring.
That's the one thing that always freaks me out is the Piat was bloody spring loaded.
Well,
That's where Nerf guns started from, Shay.
Oh, I'm aware of the Pia. I told you I love a bit of Pia action in video games. Oh,
but this, so this wasn't quite as rare and esoteric a piece of kit in the Uprising. The K-pattern flamethrower, they used a lot of homemade flamethrowers in the Rise, more than you would generally see, because it was
Good for
something that
clearing
was
buildings, I guess.
a devastating piece of equipment that they could manufacture with the provisions they had within a German occupied country at that stage.
I mean, what's the saying? It's not a war crime if it's the first time.
it wasn't the first time.
It wasn't the first
Oh,
time.
I know this. I know this. For them, it may have been.
Link's cannon and lighter, so you need.
Yep. So
Don't think they had those, Shay.
that lets you build your core of your platoons up,
Ye
which is
oldies.
nice. And then we have our vehicles. So little dispatch rider. I honestly don't know what I'm going to use him for. I don't think he has rules in bold action, which is generally the game we play whenever we're playing 28 World War
You can
II.
use him as the sort of moving objective as part of a game.
Oh yeah,
Maybe the partisans have to cover him, and he has to, and you basically just give him additional movement as he zooms through the streets.
oh well, there are rules for bikes, so you wouldn't need to be anything clever with him. But yeah, I should use him.
Or
as
you could just
an
remodel
objective
him so
replicant.
he's down and wounded.
Oh no, I wouldn't remodel him.
See a guy riding around fast on a bike, shoot him.
But he's a beautiful little sculpt as well.
That's how Justin keeps the roads clear of cyclists.
But this one,
I don't even drive and I hate them. The Kubus is lovely.
Yeah.
this is just an absolute darling. They only started building this like a week into the uprising and had it knocked out in no time. And it was equipped with light machine gun, and then it has optional Piat flamethrower or light machine gun up top.
Wow.
So you know, it was all good in the hood.
Is
as
it
they
just
say.
like was it one of those? Was it kind of like an upcycled vehicle kind of thing?
It was
like
a
just old bits and pieces.
a
Or...
Chevrolet truck
Right.
that they A-teamed. They closed the
Okay.
doors to the warehouse, bolted armor onto it, welded that armor shut, and then 2 weeks later, this rolled out.
Wow.
So
With
the
a camo pattern and a da 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 da.
The original Killdozer then.
But it was it's actually, although it looks relatively small there, it was a armored transport.
Okay.
So it was used to carry people around, and lasted up until I think it was the second assault on the university. So it finally gave up and was just left. First week in September, I think 5th or 6th, it was abandoned. And that was it.
What, did they only build one?
Yeah, the Rising went on for a couple of weeks after that, but it survived the war, and it's in the Army Museum to this day.
Oh, brilliant.
So you can visit
Nice.
it. Yeah, and I think there's a specific Uprising Museum which is separate from the Army Museum where they've built a working replica, so you can see one that actually
Amazing.
goes around
But-
as well.
Did they only ever build one of these, or was this
Yeah.
something they built a few of?
No, just built one.
Okay.
The Warsaw Rising was literally 63 days.
Okay.
So they had this. They had a captured 251 German half-track that was also used for troop transport, and they also captured 2 Panthers, but we know I don't like tanks in my games of bold action.
So they will not be seen.
Theoretically, you could, but the 251, you could have they called it Grey Wolf, and Kubis was named after the I think it was the code name for one of the designer's wives who was killed like a week before.
Oh,
wow.
During the uprising. So that was her partisan nickname.
It's so awesome. Well, I say awesome. It's obviously devastating as well.
Yeah,
but I love the kind of ingenuity of people in these situations.
Oh yeah,
come up with stuff like this. I think obviously the reason that Infamous JT that Jamie did this as well is that I don't think a lot of people necessarily know about this in as much detail, and so to have all these different characters and personalities and vehicles and things, and learning about all this cool stuff from World War II is just a great way for you to learn. Go beyond the beaches of Normandy and the fighting in France or whatever, and explore different things like this.
Weirdly, I think the book's up in the studio because we were playing a game of bold action recently, but about 8-9 months after these models came out, one of the Warlord campaign books came out that has the Polish Uprising list in it, and it includes a Kubis as well. So it's nice that there's a list you can fix it straight into, and you can go and because it was such a narrow, tight little point in time, but the first assault on the university was beaten back. There was the second assault on the university. There are these points where you go, well, we know what happened here, we know what happened here, and then we know the Russians absolutely screwed them, which is part and parcel why the uprising happened. The Soviets were coming in, and the Poles decided that they would attempt to free themselves of the Germans before the Soviets arrived, so that they could reinstall their government in exile. And Stalin was arriving with some Polish pro-Soviet Poles who were forming their own government, and they stopped outside Warsaw and waited until the Germans had crushed.
Oh,
if they'd actually moved in and the Germans were having to deal with the rising on one side, it may have ended up very differently towards the end of the war, where the Polish may have been a free country, or they may have been attached to Europe rather than sucked into the Soviet Union at the end of it.
Yeah.
So, but it's when you start looking into things like this that that you start seeing all of these bits and pieces, and you could go in and explore all of that.
Perfect opportunity for sort of a series of event style games. Like you set this up, and because obviously you as you say, you've got the definitive start and end point of this. Dive in and play it from beginning to end, or maybe pick particular flashpoints, as it were, to focus in on.
Well, with having that photographer who was there, and you say there's a book with all the photos, are there any photos of the actual city itself, some of the battle scenes that you could maybe use to recreate a table?
I've only seen a few pages of it. It's like a 400 or 500 page long book.
Oh wow!
But it's also a 250 odd pound book.
Oh
right.
So because it's it's small press published, and I don't think it's had many reprints. So it's a case of if you can find it, you're doing well. So you can pick up a whole army for a ton, ton plus change. The other thing on this site though, which I absolutely adore, am I going to be a guide? Here. Oh look! So Heresy
it's almost
Brush.
like the guy who's good at painting models. Does good
But this,
painting guides. Yeah.
this wasn't Jamie did it because he's connected. So Heresy Brush, Ruben Torregrosa.
Oh, cool.
Did them. So there's one on the Kubis. There's one on the infantry, and there's one on the infantry in German style uniforms. And they are really, really good painting guides. Even if you're not planning on doing World War II, if you're just looking for a good painting guide on vehicles, he's using a whole range of effects there, so enamels and oils and that sort of thing. But even from there, pros and cons of enamels and oils and acrylics, how prime, camouflage in stages from masking and shading to doing your camo pattern masking, blah, 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 blah. Then into the weathering. It's all in there in a handy dandy, like 12-page guide.
Brilliant.
And it's absolutely terrific. I mean, at some point I will paint my cubes. And I'll do it just like this. I'll just steal all those ideas. But
just wait until he's in the nursing home. He'll have time then.
They're not taking me to the nursing home. I will repel borders. I may attempt that. But painting the Polish Home Army, again, really nice painting guide. But it's the explanation as well. So he goes through his style of painting, which is obviously very stark highlights and contrasts and stuff. But then at the end, he goes, here's the triad system that Foundry used, that Kevin Dallymore developed, and then here's your standard layering method, and here's how you would do it if you were using these styles of painting instead, which is a really nice little touch. So yeah, this isn't, it's an invaluable resource if you want to specifically do the Warsaw Uprising.
Yeah.
If you just want to learn some techniques for vehicles and infantry models, then they're just absolutely cracking. And then the gallery pictures at the end are great as well.
Very
so
cool.
I mean, well, like I say, I liked it so much, I bought it. And then he had a sale on at one point, and I bought another set of the infantry because I've got options then. Options.
And if
My
you like
God.
what JT does anyway, they also did dwarves, didn't they, and all sorts of different things. Yeah,
Not
on their
yet.
website at the moment. They're still delivering those, aren't they? I think.
No,
Or are
they
they
haven't.
coming to Kickstarter?
They're coming to
or-
Kickstarter.
Oh, right.
Ooh.
So we're in March,
Yes.
May.
Sure.
I want to say it's May they're coming. So
Okay.
so we'll keep
Okay.
an eye on that and let you know when they're
Nice
on the
old hammer dwarves.
yes, because obviously if you weren't in the World War II vein and you weren't in the vein for some Polish Warsaw Uprising figures, you probably have never heard of Infamous JT, which means you may not be aware that there are going to be dwarves in his future. So now you know, and you've been warned, and therefore you can't use any excuses. I think that's the main thing. Right, time for some news.